Welcome to the enLIGHenUP podcast. I'm Lisa Watson and we'll be joined by my co-hosts Nicole Frolick and Brian Koenigberg. The enLIGHenUP podcast is a weekly show that provides an unconventional and refreshing spin on spirituality, where three friends and weekly guests share informative, fun, and usually off-the-wall conversations. Unlike others, we provide fringe and skeptical viewpoints on all topics, because our experience has taught us that the echo chamber is a boring place from which to learn. So regardless of where you are in your spiritual journey, we can promise you you're going to find a place to fit in here. So we invite you to grab a drink and listen in on our casual, entertaining, and hopefully enlightening conversation. And enLIGHenUP is a self-funded podcast, so if you would like to help us to continue to be able to produce, enhance, and expand the show for our audience, then please send your support using the link in the show notes, or go to our website, enlightenup.us, and check out our merchandise shop, where you can purchase merchandise that will allow you to express some spiritual humor. You may also show your support by leaving us a review on iTunes and following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting us, and now let's jump right into the episode.
Hi everyone, welcome back to enLIGHenUP. I am here with Lisa and Brian, and today we are bringing a guest that we met at the QRT Quantum Revolution tour in Vegas when we went to go see Jessica Alstrom. We met Helena Reilly, who is the co-creator and co-founder of QuantumSoundTherapy.com. Together with her partner Robert Loyal, they invented the Miracle iCube sound and scalar vortex technology to transform subconscious patterns. Helena is a pioneer and expert in the use of sound frequencies and scalar vortex technology to effect profound transformation. And in 2015, she was awarded from Who's Who of Distinguished Alumni an award for her breakthrough work co-founding quantum sound therapy, a therapeutic modality that is capable of bold, efficient, and lasting transformation. Halina has discussed this new paradigm work as a guest on CNBC and worldwide radio shows and telesummits. She's authored her first book, Sound Energetics, to reveal her work in New York City. And Halina was a highly sensitive healer from birth who was gifted with clairsentience and clairaudience. Halina, welcome to enLIGHenUP. It's so nice to have you on our show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I mean, I think we all have the scalar energy sound therapy on our phones.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
we do.
that was really cool. So before we get into all of that, I mean, this is very interesting technology. From when we were at the QRT conference, Jessica was talking about how this is energy that's been brought back from the future.
Yes, and from the past. So
And
we've
from
always
the past.
known, yes, sound always has had a very, very long history in terms of its use for healing the wounded and the suffering. But also in the universe, of course, we all know that everything is energy and vibration. Therefore, vibration and energy or frequency is measurable. So what the aspect of this that's from the distant past and the future is the knowledge that you can measure your frequency and the frequency of everything vibrating on planet Earth, and you can shift that vibration. So let's say something is locked, something is blocked. By measuring frequency or understanding frequency, it's a hack to shift something without so much heavy lifting. And this is what the world will come to understand completely over the next 200 years. Perhaps 300 years, I'm being counted. So, and you're probably wondering what made me get into this, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, of course, because I mean, this isn't everyday stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't find out about this stuff at college, that's for sure.
Oh my God. So, yeah, it's not, although there are developing curriculums in many schools now on sound music therapy, but also sound healing. So that's why it is the medicine of the future. And the way that I got into it is having been gifted with sight since birth. um, of course, you have to figure out what to do with that. So I started doing readings at 3, and I noticed immediately it was not very popular. I told my first reading that I recall, I told my parents, you're rich now, but someday you'll be poor. And many people will live in the rooms of your house.
Oh no. So you were 3 when you told your parents this?
Yes. And I looked at them and you're 3 years old. You don't even know what to just, well, I had no idea what I just said. And I don't even know how I exactly remember that event, but it was very formative because I saw that it upset them. So I went up to my room, which was my pattern, kind of hid and realized, I don't think they're ready for whatever I just said. It was disturbing. So I kind of shut it down a bit. But, when you have those kinds of gifts, you have to find a channel for it. So I became a therapist. But I started as a young teen. So the gift was recognized, but as you can imagine, it wasn't understood back then. We didn't understand indigo children or highly sensitive people or empaths. So we didn't have the knowledge then, or at least we weren't talking about it very much. So what happened was I started studying all of these modalities of therapy. And I was, the universe had its way, and I was doing psychotherapy, like peer therapy in children from the time I was 15, with 1 hour of supervision with these very high level. I'm from Newton, Massachusetts. So
I'm
I'm
from
pretty,
Massachusetts. My mom grew up in Newton.
oh, oh, seriously? Okay, then you can relate. Newton Mental Health Center, right off of Center Street. So I'm seeing these things that they weren't seeing, and then they're coaching me essentially. But then I started to realize, the first experience I had helping a child, and the child didn't read. He was 9, and then he started reading, and then the parents sabotaged it. So then I went to family therapy. And I kept on expanding my knowledge, but I really saw that nothing was working. And since nobody can argue that when you have this sight, I went and searched all over the world. After I went to University of Chicago, that's why I got that fancy award, um, I went to the masters in the Far East, and they put me in their clinics, and I started seeing their students. And then I realized even this stuff isn't working. At the level where I would see the subconscious conflict that was running the life, it was not being resolved. So they'd wear white and saris and be all spiritual, and yet this core issue is still running your life, which I know we can all relate to. They just couldn't get rid of this stuff. And that was when they put me, a number of these great gurus. One of them was Babaji, who is Paraquat Baba. I lived with him in the Himalayas, and he taught me a lot of things. First of all, I guess he understood what I was seeing, so he taught me fast. And what I realized is I wasn't imagining this. He was telling me things like, why would I work with that person? Her heart's not going to open for 2 lifetimes, because he'd send everybody away from the Himalayas. He had about 5 to 15 people there usually, and people would come in from all over the world. And if they weren't a good fit, as we say in today's world, he would send them away. I'd make a friend and they'd be gone. So at any rate, he became sort of a coach where I understood my vision. And after I then worked in the ashram of Guru Mai Chitpalasananda, she told me to go back and do this work. So I did. And I just said to the universe, listen, I'm not going to charge people for talk therapy, hundreds of dollars an hour. I've got to have something that's really efficient, that affects them on the karmic level, that zaps the subconscious, that's a hack to the subconscious. And that's when I started going down this road. You guys are in Boulder. So I first was an assistant to Don Campbell and the Mozart Effect, in case people don't remember him. He's on the other side now. And then I found Loy's early technology. And my own experience, even after all these years with these huge masters. So we do this thing called voice code analysis. So we analyze over 1 billion bits of information, and then we develop a soundtrack that is extremely accurate. When I was in my private practice, I called it the psychic drill. We were doing that at Jessica's. We did it with the group and some individuals. And I saw it was pinging all these deep subconscious blocks. And then I started having huge miracles in my practice and, with the people I was working with. And it allowed me, the vortex, to open my own gifts, because the second hack is that we're using scalar coils or scalar energy to develop it's not a shield, it's like an energy vortex. But what it feels like, and I know you guys experienced it, is a cocoon. It's a protection. What it is really coherent energy waves. And so practicing, in my practice, it was in Manhattan, I could go really deeply and feel safe enough, and they felt safe enough because I was using the scalar technology. And that was when this whole modality started to blossom, because I could see that it was pinging those deep subconscious blocks. Like, so everybody, I have digestive problems. Well, there's a 99% chance that is 72% emotional. I just made that up, the percentage, but meaning we're body, mind, soul connected. So if you just deal with the bioterrain, and we're not dealing with what you're not emotionally digesting from this and maybe 1,000 other lifetimes, we miss, so much of the healing. So that was how I got on the journey. There was no support for someone like me in terms of, like, you had to really go far and wide to the kind of conversation you could call 100 healers today and have this kind of conversation. But back in the day, they were hiding or they didn't exist. And so, but the site drove me step by step to keep going. And this is where I ended up. Then I joined up after being in private practice for over 10 years and seeing, like, every one of my clients except one left New York City. They all wanted to. And whatever that block was, it was released. It was emotional. And they left and moved to places like, Santa Monica, California, Boulder, Colorado, Arizona, wherever their hearts, and soul pulled them. So I ended up here because I could see that what I'd taught and I even studied with all these Harvard guru guys. And I just saw everybody still as hung up as we're all on the same boat here. We've all got our stuff in the subconscious.
You talked about using scalar energy in your early practice, and obviously that's leading up to what you brought forth at QRT. Can you break down what is scalar energy?
Yeah. Scalar energy is, you're actually dealing with coils, and the coils are wound in a way that it reaches the center and creates a cancellation field. And so scalar energy is so the result is a very coherent field of energy that some people call the 0 point energy field. Because when the energy from the coils meets in the middle, it cancels everything. So it's empty quantum space. And that's when the shift can occur, when the quantum blip occurs. It kind of empties.
So just so I'm understanding and taking the audience through this, we've had guests on our show like Marina Jacoby talk about quantum manifestation and how to jump timelines. And the 0 point is, when you reach the 0 point, is how you shift into a new timeline, or it's how you shift your field so that you're manifesting at higher levels.
Yes.
So that 0 point, your scalar energy is helping people to get to that 0 point field, allowing them to have that shift like you just spoke about.
Yes. And because we're using scalar coils, and that's what my partner Robert Loy, his life work is about, developing this proprietary kind of scalar coil that actually generates what your guest was speaking of, that actually facilitates that. Because what we're doing is we're also playing coherent frequencies that are in alpha, theta, delta, gamma, so that your brain is actually going deeper and deeper, which also facilitates the 0 point. But one of the
So
ways,
those sounds that we have that
yes,
we got from you from that we listen to,
yeah,
that is separate. Those sounds are separate from the scalar. It sounds like the scalar
no.
energy is some sort of desktop little machine.
Good question. And so what we've created with the Quantum Sound Miracle is a delivery system for the scalar energy and frequencies. So what we have is basically 3 parts. We have an audio track that's playing through an audio player that's being amplified and played through the scalar coils. So we're actually taking the scalar energy and amplifying it. So it's actually what it really is scalar optimized sound frequencies, SOS, right? And so the components are, so when we're doing the voice code analysis, and this is why it's so powerful, a lot of people, no, not a lot, like 3 or 4 people, there'll be more, have developed voice analysis programs. Ours is 5 octaves, so we're the only ones that are looking at the voice in that depth. Most are looking at 1 or 2 octaves. But this is the difference. We are playing those frequencies using a deep delta amplifier. We are playing those frequencies through the scalar coils. And scalar energy, if you understand it, is, now we're talking about electronic scalar energy. We're not talking about naturally occurring. So scalar energy goes through walls. It penetrates blocks. So when you take that personalized audio track and you play it through our scalar coils, it's going through your subconscious blocks. That's why they're dissipating, because of the power of scalar. So sound is immensely powerful. But when you optimize it, so we're taking the frequencies, I guess I have to have a great diagram drawn, because we're taking the frequencies, we're using, like, for example, with the Quantum Sound Miracle, 3 deep delta amplifiers. Some very cool dude in Germany decided he wanted amplifiers that went down to delta, which most audiophiles don't care about delta because you can't hear it. So we're taking the sound, we're amplifying it through the amplifiers and optimizing it using the scalar coils. So what you're getting is a form of surround scalar sound. So you're bathing in it. But guess what? That's what it takes. It takes that kind of intervention. Because, why? Because you're constantly being bombarded with incoherent information that you're in training with. And people just don't realize that. Like a fish doesn't know it's swimming in water. You don't know you're swimming in this electronic field that's loaded with EMFs, dirty energy, pollutants, all kinds of weird electricity and phenomenon that you can't see, but your field is recognizing. So what we're doing is developing the scalar cocoon. And that's why people feel this so powerfully. That, when you plug that into a hotel room, boom, the energy completely changes.
So these recordings that we have, and we'll play a sample. Maybe now's a great time to play a sample, because it sounds, it's very different sounding.
It is.
It's not birds and flowing water sounds.
It's frequency, so it's good to address that.
And you guys were very generous to analyze our voices there and give us these recordings as being a part of the Quantum Revolution tour. However, I don't have a scalar device sitting on my desk, so is it less effective without creating that
decent speaker system,
0 point energy with your scalar device, just listening to the sounds, or is it a different kind of effectiveness that we're just listening to these weird
sound alone?
Sounds?
It's going to have a diminished impact but I don't want to script this, but which is why we have the Ohm Pocket. So with the Ohm Pocket, it's one simple coil that you could actually plug in to your laptop while you're listening to your frequencies. And so that will, greatly, but if you aren't, the scalar coils will optimize the results, definitely. That's why we're doing it that way. However, I really want to say that sound frequency is very, very powerful. And of course, with intention, it can do a great deal of work. I do recommend, though, if you're just doing sound, make sure you have some good headphones.
Yeah, the headphones are very important.
Nicole and I can attest to the results. I mean, when we got home from QRT, I was listening to my recording 2, sometimes 3 times a day, and I noticed a difference. I got really tired. I was starting to feel a lot of triggers and things come up, which, on the outside made it look like I was worse than before. But I know that I was clearing blocks and things were coming up for me. And I had to back off on listening to it for a couple days until I leveled out. And so there's definitely an impact.
Yeah. And I had a heart activation happen at the beginning of QRT. And I didn't know, though, at the time that that's what happened. And when I got your scalar energy and I came home and I played it on my phone with my headphones, the first night I did it, I heard restructure the heart while I was listening to it, and I felt my whole heart chakra really expanding. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But then it wasn't until after that that I found out that I received this heart activation through my guides. And so it was just interesting to see, because you talk about how, because I'm sure the audience, I'd like to talk about this more because I'm sure the audience doesn't understand exactly what we're talking about here. That you literally had us speak into a microphone so that it could analyze our voice, and there's our consciousness is attached to that, right? Like that's what it's reading. And so at any given point in your life, the energy or program that gets spit out for your own sound frequency could be different at any time in your life.
At any time in the day, even there are shifts in, even if you're, let's say you have a lunch that had a toxin in it and your body's going to respond, that's going to be in your voice. So the voice is ever changing, but what you're doing is you're speaking into a microphone and we're analyzing over 1 billion bits of information from the voice over 5 octaves, and then creating an audio track that has 146 decimal points of resolution. That's how precise it is. And then what we're doing is we're putting that into a waveform we call it the golden 6, but it is binaural beats tripled. So that also accelerates. I do want to make this point that sound alone is very powerful, especially when the voice is a map of the entire energetic structure of the being. It includes the physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the causal, past, present, future. You cannot mask it. That's why it's so powerful, because most therapies, I was always really surprised about this, but they're all based on some other person delivering the goods, analyzing you, diagnosing you. This is about your voice telling your story, and then your voice creating the soundtrack that will balance and harmonize you. And it's why it's so profound. And I'll tell you that just recently there are some psychiatrists now, they're actually working in collaboration with like banks. They're saying the voice can tell everything. It can tell, like we've known this for years, but they're saying it can tell if someone's depressed, if they have ADD, ADHD. So they're figuring out it's a great diagnostic tool. And the banks are thinking of using it to determine credit risk, and which they're a little concerned about, because you can definitely, that could definitely be mistaken. But it just shows you it's a map of you. It's a blueprint. And because we tend to face dance a lot, even with therapists, and especially, it's very unconscious. There's no way you can lie through your voice. Like, even if I try to talk differently, my voice still has certain frequencies resonating in this body. So it is, there's nothing ambiguous about it. Whereas most diagnostic things are based on some interpretation through someone else's mind. This isn't. People, no, we can look at things like a dominant C note, a low C note, what that might mean, but we still have developed an audio track for you based on a billion bits of information from your voice. And it is available online. I don't know if you know that, and we could issue a coupon code for
that would
your
be
listeners.
wonderful.
Yeah, so it's available at quantumsoundtherapy.com, cloud sound therapy. So you can just do it. We have now the iPhone app and the Windows 10. And we could do a code, enLIGHEN50 and give a 50% discount.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, because sound is very powerful. So Scalar just brings it to that whole other level, but sound can shift you so fast. So I would encourage anyone that resonates with this at this time to give it a try. So we'll sweeten it, and I'll have them do that this afternoon to anyone that's listening in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so great. And to our listeners, it's such a cool tool to have, that therapy, because it's so easy. You just have to play it and sit there. You can lie down, eyes closed, and it's I found that, this goes without saying, whatever your intention is will always amplify something. So if you go into it with the intention of really wanting to absorb it and be present with it, it really amplifies that whole experience, I found. So it's a wonderful therapy that has been gifted to us from the past and the future. And I think it's very interesting.
Helena, do you need to be lying down in a relaxed state, or do you can you just listen to it while you're commuting to work, driving?
Yes, you can listen to it. Like, I'll put it on my laptop and be listening to it while I'm working even. And you can listen to it while you're standing in line at the airport or driving, commuting, or whatever you're doing. That's the beauty of the app, actually. And it will reduce stress. But as you said, it's also going to start to dig into, to release that stress. But a common thing, people say, I just feel lighter. Because, some of those things we're so burdened by the subconscious. We don't even know the contents of it.
And so when you're listening to this, one of the effects also is creating a shield from all of the other kind of toxic information bombarding us.
Well, when I was speaking of the shield, I was speaking of the scalar coil technology, like the quantum sound miracle.
Okay, so if you have the scalar coil, if someone were to purchase that and use that, have it near them, like, so you say it plugs into your computer? You have one?
You can plug your own pocket directly into the computer. It also has its own audio track. But what I was saying is that so there are a couple of options you can download. So when you do the voice code analysis, let's say that's on Cloud Sound Therapy, you can either make a chip and put it and then load it onto your phone, or you can plug it directly. If you have an own pocket, you could plug it directly into the laptop that you've analyzed your voice on, or so there are a number of ways even to make it portable. You could load it onto your phone even if you didn't analyze it on the phone. And we have instructions when people order it, instructions and a couple of simple videos. But it's really, really easy. It's basically downloading an audio track.
So I would assume the Ohm Pocket is your entry level into creating the scalar energy, and you have a couple of other different sizes. What is the Ohm Pocket piece cost?
Oh, okay. So the Ohm Pocket is $1,350, and it comes with a pre-programmed AM/PM audio track. It is very portable, so it fits into your, purse or backpack or pocket.
Good name.
It's a little big for, yeah. It actually really protects you from all the discordant energies so this is the great thing about scalar energy. When you're moving with it, it gets amplified. So let's say you're on a train or a plane. We have a lot of people. Tony Robbins bought 5 pockets. So we have a lot of people and a bunch of miracles, by the way, quantum sound miracles, but for the environmental factor. But the thing is that when you're moving, you're really being exposed to so much you're not aware of. We really are the fish swimming in the water. And so it does protect you from the EMFs. And I know people are very concerned right now about 5G, et cetera, and it's going in powerfully over the next 3 to 5 years. So what happens is with the scalar energy, this is the key. The dominant waveform wins. So scalar is the strongest. It's like most people, when they're talking, even when they're talking about scalar energy, they're talking about electromagnetic energy. They're like PEM mats, for example. That's not scalar. So when your scalar energy has coils that are wound in a certain way to generate a certain field, and it's something is being directed through it. In our case, it's frequencies. So when the pocket allows you to walk through the environment or walk through your life with this extra brainwave entrainment, you can add your personalized frequencies. And then we have a PM soundtrack, so many who are having difficulties with sleep are sleeping much more deeply. And we have cannabis soundtracks for relaxation. So it's a complete full-bodied soundtrack. And yes, the frequencies are mathematically derived, and we're beating 6 frequencies together. So they sound really weird at first, but when you relax into it, you'll begin to realize that your brain is in training with these very profound frequencies. So you find it relaxing, addictive, meaning because it relaxes you and the brain's always looking to grow, actually. So you'll find that those weird sounding frequencies become medicine for you. And we do have masks on the audio tracks, on the personalized audio tracks. So you can do like Om or ocean waves or whale sounds. I think we have, what else do we? So we have a few masks that maybe help you in the early phases when you're not used to it.
You mean that the weird sound is playing in the background of something more pleasant? Mm.
Exactly. So it's important to me. It's not soothing music. It's frequencies that are to free you. Frequencies to
So that mask music is kind of like putting melted cheese on your steamed broccoli to make it taste better until you like the broccoli taste.
Put some sugar on the grapefruit. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Where did the technology come from? Was this invented by your partner? You mentioned his name earlier.
Yes.
I forget
so
it.
The history of the technology is Robert actually has been bringing scalar technology to a number of systems for many years, but the technology actually is an ancient technology, and its origins are from Atlantis. And so he and I are actually finishing up a project from back then, and that's why it's evolved. It's actually about 300 years ahead of its time. So that's why I said at Jessica's event, I'm from the future, and I was partly, tongue in cheek, but I was also telling you the truth that because of my history with it, I was sort of chosen or elected to bring it here despite the resistance, which there would be a great deal of, because you can't bring in a new idea and not have a lot of resistance when it's ahead of its time. So what it is that he developed the early scalar technology, and that is really his role here. That's really what he does for the evolution of humanity. His only concern is the awakening of humanity. He knows that if you're awake, 1,000,000 solutions will come in for health, because all health begins and ends in the energy field around the body anyway. And if everybody had sight, we'd know exactly what was going on physically. So his whole mission, so he brings in the scalar technology. And then when I met up with this at the University of Honolulu, Don Campbell had sent me to meet his friend, Arthur Harvey, a renowned ethnomusicologist, and this technology showed up. It wasn't him, it was someone else that brought it. And when that was brought in, he was just doing the voice analysis, actually. He had developed the scalar coils, and then he was doing the voice analysis. But when I bought it, I told him I did a lot of experimentation with the voice analysis, and I asked him to add the coils because I was going to open this practice in New York, and I wanted it to be smoother. I wanted it to be faster is what I wanted, the process of my clients. So then we started working together then, and then 10 years. So we basically had one coil, which is sort of like what you have with the Ohm Pocket, and voice analysis. But back then we had, this was the late 90s, we had 4-foot subwoofers and 1,000,000 wires. And like giving a talk or something I had to have like 3 people carrying stuff in. And so it was a different world. And so then he actually showed up at my house in Honolulu with the coils, and I had 12 of my own people buy the technology back then. And so we started our own little think tank. We were all alternative practitioners. And what happened then is, so basically that would be like the Ohm Pocket and the cloud sound therapy, essentially boiled down. And then technologies changed. So we kept on talking, but I was doing my whole private practice thing, and I was talking all over the place. But then it was built on this Amiga platform that just totally tanked. And so at that point, I shut my practice down. I was doing phone readings and stuff, but I shut my practice down because I didn't have the technology, and moved to California. And that was when we started to redo the software on the Windows platform. And then the light went on like around 2006. Oh my God, this has got to run 24/7. This environment is getting so polluted, and people really need this all the time. So that's when the iCubes started, is around 2007. So we joined forces in 2002, and then 5 years later, we had the new software, and then we decided to start making the entrainment devices that are plug and play, that run in your home or office 24/7. And that's been the biggest breakthrough. We couldn't believe that we hadn't done it before, brought it to other people. He had been using it for himself for meditation, but he was, I guess he was hesitant to take that step. And so that was when we started, and that was when the project really started to evolve more quickly, because the people in the group grew faster. So because they were being entrained into coherent scalar fields 24/7. So people investing, they weren't like, when I was doing voice analysis, and we had these little CDs, and we would play them through our boom boxes or whatever we had. And so it's like another century. I feel like I'm 300 years old. And so that was the 90s, believe it or not. That was like the late 90s, but it feels like an eternity. And so that's how it evolved. And then we developed this whole line of iCubes where we focused on certain systems in the body. So we have the soundtrack for opening the heart, for decalcifying the pineal, to strengthen the organs and glands, to clear extraneous energies. So we have a very, very long playlist that comes with all of the iCubes, even including the little Ohm Pocket. And we'll give your group a special discount as well for the Own Pocket.
Oh, thank you. Do you have any interesting stories or testimonials from people who've been using these products that really stick out in your
Yes.
mind?
Yeah. So recently, one lady, since I get to see it from the beginning to the end, we hear stories every day, but one that really tells you how deeply this works is one lady bought the Miracle 2 years ago at Christmas. And her husband didn't really know what she was buying. And he'd been in this terrible motorcycle accident. So after the pain stuff was over, he owns a big business. He started drinking 18 beers a day to make the pain go away at night. And, this was becoming a serious problem. So she got the Miracle. He was in so much pain, he couldn't go up the stairs even to the bedroom. She put the Miracle in the bedroom. And he stopped drinking completely. Like just occasional, like if a friend comes over, 1 or 2 beers, like normal, occasional drinking. So that really showed he did not have any idea what she bought. He had no interest, and yet the addiction, what was causing the addiction, was addressed. And it was mind blowing to the whole San Diego energy healing community, which is where this occurred. Another one that's really stand out is there's a trauma therapist. Her name is Debs Vonneveldt in Canada, and she had come back from Europe, and her nephew and sister moved in with her, and she has two of our tech. She has the Miracle and the Tesla. And again, the nephew was probably 13 years old, and the sister, they did not know anything about what this was about. The nephew was on the autism spectrum, and he was in all special classrooms. And after 18 months, she said, I think he should be reclassified. He hasn't been analyzed for a little while. And when they gave him the tests again, they placed him in all normal classrooms. He's now pursuing a career and going to go to college. And the people on the staff said, what are you doing? This doesn't happen, like ever. So, and he started socializing. So it completely shifted. Those are very dramatic. And then some of the more subtle things that I hear about every day is, in some cases, there are so many pent up emotions, like in relationships, and where couples, it's kind of like it's all going to come out, or they're going to split up. And so we've had many situations where whatever has been being repressed, which could be anger or sadness, gets expressed with the couple. And this can even be they're doing voice analysis, because some of the people have just done voice analysis, but with the technologies particularly, where the relationship harmonizes, and it's almost as what it is that the root pain pattern, whatever was causing that disharmony, gets dealt with through frequency, and there's no need to fight. So I hear that constantly, that the Miracle arrives in someone's home, and what they'll tell me is, we're driving to New York City or something, and I would normally have picked this fight, but I noticed I did not have to. So what it is that the pattern, whatever's behind that, is gone. Whatever's driving that dissatisfaction, that energy, is released. And I hear that continuously.
I thought earlier you mentioned that the analysis for the sound that's coming, that's not the scalar energy, but the sound that's being played, that's specific to the person. So how does that work when you're just putting this device that you mentioned, the Miracle or the Tesla? Is this the scalar energy field operating without the sound therapy? Because if you just put it in the house, it's not necessarily for the sound therapy hasn't been designed
yeah,
for the specific
got it.
people.
So there are two parts of this. You have your personalized audio soundtrack, which is your prescription, but then you have a digital or audio player that has a very long playlist soundtrack, which is AM and PM, and that's what's playing 24/7. So you could insert your 24-minute personalized sound therapy into that soundtrack. But this soundtrack has been developed over the last 35 years, actually. It has frequencies for pineal activation, everything from wellness, just to decharge energy, pineal activation, organs, glands, focus, and so that is the soundtrack.
So that's not specific. That's just generic for anybody.
It's generic for anybody, but it's as I said when I opened the conversation, everything has a very specific frequency. We happen to have hacked into that Akashic records, and so it's that soundtrack is extremely precise and effective. My own son, in 7 days, he was getting GMATs at 500. He went from 500 to 740 using the Focus soundtrack, which activates the left frontal lobe, which is where genius, knowledge, learning, intuition. It's where Joe Dispenza talks a lot about the left frontal lobe. It activates like the genius center of the brain and the problem-solving center. And so the very robust soundtrack is 24/7.
Does that sound similar to the personalized one? I'm just imagining that sound playing 24/7 in the house. And
oh yeah, it does. Because it's scalar, you can either play it very low, barely audible, or not at all.
Okay.
So the scalar,
oh,
scalar does not need sound. When you're doing your sound therapy through the scalar coils, it's okay to not have sound, but there's a certain part of the brain that sound addresses. So especially with your personalized sound therapy, you really want sound. But when you're playing the devices 24/7, most of our people, so you have to realize we have these in corporations now and in offices and homes, and some people like it and some people hate it. The sound isn't always pleasing. So you can either bring it really low volume. Most people get used to it because they feel the pleasurable sensation of their brain and training into a more coherent field. So in time, as they become more conscious, they will usually develop a love for it because they can feel the light, the energy, the coherence. But you can play it all day with no sound. It has LEDs, so you know it's running. These are the eye cubes, and it can be completely non-invasive, but most feel it if they're close to it. So that's the good news, is that if the aesthetics of the sound is not resonating at this time, then you can just turn off the sound and play it through the scalar coils. The frequencies are still going through the scalar coils, still developing the 0-point field, still in training with your brain. Everything's still going on. You just don't. And there's one part of the brain, actually, that sound is addressing. Actually, the brain researchers are now saying it's more than one. But historically, they used to say it was just one. Now they're saying, oops, they're wrong. So it's maybe like 3 or 5. But it's, the brain is very complex. That's the great news. You don't have to listen to it if you don't like it. There are masks. Right.
That is great news.
Yeah. Because people go, what is this weird stuff? This is sound healing? Oh my God.
So I'm trying to understand sound healing.
Okay,
So in our subconscious mind, we get like energy blocks from, say, traumatic things that have happened that maybe don't seem traumatic, but maybe at 2, you're told you can't play or something, and that's traumatic to you. And so you have these energy blocks inside of you. Yeah. And this helps to 0-point those and release them.
That's a good description. And actually we have visible evidence of, so let's say, you go out and you see something traumatic in the street, somebody slaps someone or something, and it throws your chakras out of balance. Or let's say your computer crashes in Vegas and it throws out your chakras. Actually, the sound will line up the chakras. So we have visible evidence of that thanks to Korotkov, the Russian scientist. So that's one way sound works, the subtle energy field. But it also addresses the organs and the brain. So it addresses the whole being. And and the thing is, it's not just traumatic memory, it's that we're carrying memory in our field. And in some cases, people are stuck in memories. So they need to be released. And sound that's why I called it the psychic drill. They're like if you had sight, you would see, like I have that kind of sight only when I choose, usually when I'm working with someone. There's like congestions of energy. Like I was working on this lady. I was in massage school because in my search I did everything, Reiki, massage, rebirthing. I did everything that I could find. So I was in massage school in Santa Fe, and I felt this, I stopped doing the physical thing because I felt this dark energy. That was just congested energy. And then I said, what happened here? And she said, I was in a car accident, blah, blah, blah. And so it's those congestions that should be visible to you and will be when your third eye is open and your heart's fully open. The sound detects and releases because it's subtle energy. And that's also why sometimes the sound makes you a little uncomfortable, because it is the psychic drill. When it hits those congestions of energy, you will squirm. And somebody said that, you'll feel like you're triggered. It hit a trigger point. And it's like tapping on the congestion to release it on a sound, on an auditory level. And it will release it, and there could be agitation. So the agitation, I want to address this actually, the agitation isn't just the sound, it's that it's hitting your buttons. And so I used to encourage my clients, just sit through this, because when it goes through that, it's going to like penetrate that congested energy and you're going to feel lighter. And that's what they always said. That was the most common thing that they would say to me, is that they were all New Yorkers. They would say they felt lighter, happier. A lot of people, had major shifts in their lives in, terms of finding their purpose, meeting their soulmate. One very dramatic thing just recently happened. This lady came to us. She came to one of the healers in the group, and she'd been working with one of the main personal development coaches. And she said she'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, a lot of great work was done. I won't mention any names. But there was an intimacy issue, and she couldn't get to it. No matter how many events she went to, no matter how many affirmations she did, no matter how much she jumped up and down and yelled and did this and that and the other thing, she still had issues with intimacy. And after she did the voice analysis, in 2 weeks, it released, and she actually met someone. She was engaged by Christmas. And, I don't know exactly when the wedding is going to be, but she said in just a couple of weeks with sound. And that's because it did depict the block and it did release it. But that's the moment when you may hate this sound more than ever. And there's another story. We had this one cat who was actually a grandmother that visited the child's home, who has a cat who had some kind of cancer, some kind of growth. And the cat just slept. We have pictures of it all over the place, but the cat just slept on the miracle. And the grandmother was there maybe for a couple of weeks. And when she left, they took the cat back to the veterinarian, and they didn't have to do the $20,000 surgery. So it can work too, because it's scalar, it goes through walls, penetrates cells, and, it works its way through things.
I have a question, Helena.
Yeah.
So for instance, we all got the sound therapy when we were in Vegas and we've been listening to it. And is there a time where you want to do another voice analysis and say upgrade, like you've worked through the blocks of that particular voice analysis? And because you said it can change at any point during the day. So how do you suggest that for people?
Oh, yeah. Your voice, I recommend once a week or at a minimum once a month.
Okay. Oh.
And listen to it as much as you're drawn to listen to it.
So do another voice analysis at the very minimum once a month.
Exactly. And overdose on it. You'll sort of start to feel it stale.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You'll start to feel like, okay, I've worked through it. Like maybe it doesn't trigger you anymore.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I was
boring.
wondering. I'm
It's
like, does it get to
boring.
the point where it's like, oh, this is just really easy now? And, you know, you kind of hit that plateau, I guess.
You do. It's still your voice.
Yeah.
It's still going to have some impact on you. But, you know, and I'm surprised, you know, I've been doing this now for, I think I'm going on my 27th year with the sound, right? And so it's still, if I analyze my voice after this session, it will still be it'll still work on me. I'll be like, whoa, what was that? Especially if you use an affirmation. Did you use an affirmation or the vowels?
I think we did the vowels.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did the vowels.
You've
Yeah.
got a great voice.
Is that included in the price? You know, for any of our listeners, and they can, you know, get a discount. Do you have to pay for it each time to get a new one, or is recording a new soundtrack, is that included? Can you keep going back every week?
Yeah, that's a great question. We so far we've been doing it a la carte, actually. But that's a very good question. I was thinking of maybe doing a really reasonable subscription thing so that, you know, people would pay one fee and then be able to do as many, but I haven't developed that yet. So, and
Yeah, that's a great idea.
yeah,
Given it's going to encourage people to come back, I think, more
yes,
than if it wasn't available that way.
absolutely. Yeah. So I guess we'll put that in the job jar.
Because it's kind of like a gym membership, you know, like
Yeah.
you go to the gym and you're going to use it, and, you know, you don't want to just stop going to the gym.
Yeah,
So it's
sure.
kind of like because it is like a workout, like you said, it's like, what do you call it? A psychic,
It is like a workout. It's like an energy
yeah.
workout where whatever stress you've picked up, and some of it could be completely environmental. Like one thing that's really stressed in everybody now is aluminum. And that's because, so we look at the elements of the voice, and that's where, you know, you can sort of see a lot that's going on in the environment. And so some of the practitioners, aluminum is so stressed, and that's because it's in the water, the air, the food. And that's just one example, but you're absolutely right. So we need to develop that. And that's why I was thinking we'd give the community like an ongoing discount, and I will give that some thought and put that together as soon as we can. We just mastered the universal window, so every time Windows changes its algorithm, we don't have to go crazy. And we just mastered the iPhone app where in case you have like iPhone 5 or something, you get the soundtrack in your email. So we just have mastered it so that we feel like we can actually really support it completely, because it was a little, you know, when they change their algorithm, you have to really jump on it and change the whole thing again. So, but yes, it's a very good point. That's my next step.
Great.
So it becomes really affordable. And, you know, it's like everybody kind of wants, I want to say this part, everybody wants to know like what's wrong with them. Like, oh my God, what did you learn about me? And that's the allopathic model. Like, what's your diagnosis of me? And this is the thing about sound and sound healing, is that it is a new paradigm where it's just mathematical. So you're just frequency in motion, which of course means you're not stagnant. And of course it means you're fluid and your frequency in motion, and that's awesome. You don't have to be a fixed energy field. And
it's interesting that you say people want to know what's wrong with me, what's the diagnosis, because it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting better.
And the truth is that that diagnosis might hurt you more than
I was just going to say that, because we live in this world where we identify with our disease, like
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
like I am my disease.
yeah, like I'm a
Yeah,
cancer survivor, or it's so crazy, because you hear about that all the time, where someone will come in and they had no idea they had cancer. Now the doctor's like, you have 3 months to live, and you just see this like drop in their health instantly. The mind is so powerful, and so it's interesting. We've been programmed so much to be so in trained with the disease as opposed to the health.
exactly. And the quantum
Mm-hmm.
potential to shift and change. And so subconsciously we're always looking for what's wrong with us or that diagnosis. And so the biggest thing is there really is no diagnosis. We can look at the voice and say, hey, your F note is high, which is the heart chakra. And often it might mean there's emotional stress, but then it also might mean that that person operates as a healer and uses their heart energy a lot. So there's no fixed diagnosis of anything. You just need to know what's going on in the person's life and what they are trying to work through. But that's been the biggest thing. So since I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I was a really innocent child when I started, I realized now that seeking the diagnosis has done so much damage. Oh, I'm on the autism spectrum. Oh, I'm ADD, I'm ADHD, and then boom, out come the drugs and the special schools. And in many ways, it might be just a uniqueness. The person's wired differently. And the sound doesn't judge. It's very neutral. Scalar energy is very neutral. It's just always going to pump out this electronic vortex of light, a very high, the highest vibration you can imagine. Coherent, scalar energy. Coherent, it's pure love is what it really is. Many people, the scientists don't even want to try to describe it. So the metaphysicians will say it's really the closest to source energy that you can get. So you're pumping out this high, which is what? High vibration. Pumping out this high vibration into your environment. Over time, many things will shift. And I always get the questions, will it heal this and that? And I say, well, you're asking me questions that will destroy us. I can't say that, but I can tell you over time, you can harmonize and balance anything. And you can raise your vibration to the point where you either heal yourself or you automatically attract exactly what you need to balance that
Mm-hmm.
condition, even if it's a life lesson. Because in many cases, these things are life lessons. It's like, okay, I have this problem, but I'm learning this. It's not, and the problem is that now, we have the medical way of responding to these labels. And that's done a lot of damage to many
Yeah.
people. You know, so we're from that new paradigm. And yes, the shifts that occur, I mean, I've seen so many changes in the way people use their consciousness over the years and growing in ways that people don't grow. Like my own son what opened up for him as he opened parts of his consciousness was a whole new world. And, his purpose, not everybody's going to go down that road, but his purpose manifested clearly, for example. But in many cases, one of the problems in today's world is really a spiritual problem. It's really that people have lost touch with that purpose, the reason for the incarnation. And that's the true disease. It's really not physical. And so the truth is that the sound will eventually undress some of this conditioning so that you're free to pursue actually who you really are. And it's unlimited. Your quantum potential is always
Mm.
unlimited. You can, right now, this can be we can be in 3,000 places at once. We don't really have limits the way we're living in a quantum universe. So the the scalar energy keeps traveling. It seems to know that. but we can also be reaching people. And it is interesting because radio waves, they travel. And the thing about scalar waves is it could be awakening someone right now, just this knowledge that is even sleeping on the other side of the planet. So you have to also adjust now that we're going to go into the quantum universe. And when we do, and that's what's going to take 300 years, by the way, but you'll see so many changes, both with the money system, and Bitcoin is sort of showing that things are going to change now because the banks are trying to adopt their own Bitcoin. But everything will change because of the realization that we're all interconnected and that the body is one system, but everything is connected. So one simple vibration can travel out and change your consciousness in an instant. So we've been talking about this physicalized modality that's actually here to expand throughout the planet. And it's here to awaken. It's not, when you become awakened, you will know how to heal yourself. You'll know if what you have even is healable. In some cases, people think it's a disease. It could be the greatest gift. The child on the spectrum, it might be that he's supposed to be a genius, creator of something. And, so he has to be wired in
I would think that's probably more the likelihood, more so than not,
Yeah.
is how I see it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So the whole point is using this to live a better life.
And I think it's really important too. I just love that we kind of touched on that topic of how we kind of wear our disease like a badge of honor. Like it's ridiculous. And when you kind of stop and think about it, you realize how ridiculous it is, and that we're so entrained in identifying so much with what's wrong with us versus everything that's right. And it's just simply shifts in perspective, and that's it. That's all it is. But I guess with the gentleman who was drinking the 18 beers and then he just stopped, that scalar energy removed whatever subconscious blocks were within him or anything that was in his environment that was contributing to his pain.
Exactly. The root pain pattern was addressed, and who knows where that actually came from, because the accident might have occurred to remind him of that. So the root pain, the deepest level that is still probably completely unconscious, but it's
and Brian said this earlier, and we had Amber on last week, and it's like, if you're healed, who cares how it happened? You're healed.
Exactly. And if you feel, this is one thing about our technology, which is kind of amusing after years of watching it. People will all of a sudden get happy and kind of balanced and feel good in their life. And they'll say, oh, I don't think anything happened. And there's a reason for that too, is that happiness is actually a more natural joy. It's a more natural state. So in a way, the stress of where they were at before, the limitation, once that garment was removed, they feel they're in their more natural state, who they really are, who they were as a child before and then they don't necessarily associate that with the technology. But in many ways, the technology acts to just peel away the layers of the onion. And I always say it just depends on how much, baggage you're carrying and how much work you've done, awareness work you might have done on yourself. Because some people, they're living still in a very toxic environment, so they might have a little more work to do. And, that's also, there's nothing wrong with that either, because that also can happen in a quantum second. It doesn't have to take a lifetime or anything.
I'm excited. I'm going to be going in and getting a new sound therapy because I want to do it using the affirmation, because I know affirmation I want to use.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because that's what seems to, like the vowels are great because we get a real, kind of a base point, but the affirmations seem to accelerate the manifestation because you're actually putting that out into the universe and amplifying it. And then working through the subconscious block. So let's say you said something you didn't really believe. Like, okay, you have this disease, but you say, I am in perfect health. Well, part of you doesn't believe that because you're programmed now. And so all of what doesn't believe gets kind of dealt with. So I really like the paradoxical nature with the when you state an affirmation, because it just brings up the resistance and it can make people grow even faster and accelerate that result to you because it removes the blocks. And so I do recommend affirmation
Okay.
for expansive, explosive, accelerated growth.
Well, we're going to have all of the information for all of our listeners with the coupon codes and all of that. We'll get all that. We'll put it in the show notes, the website, and any of that. And do you still work one-on-one with people, Helena?
Occasionally, like when we're traveling, sometimes I will do one-on-one sessions. And then if people, I do have an office that I have access to use in close to where I live in Florida, occasionally. Yeah, I've been very busy with the development of this, but I do, especially with the people that want to work with the technology. I've written a new book, and I wrote it in 12 days, one chapter a day.
Wow.
And yeah, I know. There's a lot of editing now, and the other things you have to do, design a cover. But it's going to be about the 7 hacks. So usually it's hard for people to put together all the pieces of this, but it's the 7 hacks basically, and it's for healers or consciousness leaders or people that are looking to add some modality to their life that's like a shortcut. So it tells the 7 shortcuts. And I'm creating a course around it and so on and so forth. But what I think I will do as part of that is some live events, and also I'll be doing some private sessions with the people that are going to be the trainers of this modality. So I'm calling it the quantum sound method today. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow, but today we're calling it that. But the quantum sound method. So yeah, when we're working, because one of the things is that we are all brought together to do this work together because it's familiar to us. Like you probably wouldn't have even talked to me if it wasn't in your timeline somewhere, past, present, future. And so we're all brought together because we have this memory, and we also want to accelerate our own growth and other people's growth. And that's what this technology is about, is accelerating your growth in a pretty effortless, painless way. So even you might get triggered for an afternoon, but it's not going to be for a lifetime or even 3 weeks. So the big point, and I think one of the things that people want to know is, does this work for them? It works for everybody. It works for cats and horses.
Yeah.
And it works for all humans because sound is the universal language. And it is non-judgmental. When your 108.736 is out of balance, that doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Wrong radio
Exactly.
station.
I just tuned into the wrong frequency today, so my 108 is out. Yeah, so it's the universal language, so it helps everyone.
Oh, so no thinking required.
Yeah, that's the point, because the whole analysis thing, it just engraves the pattern deeper. That's what happens in the brain. When you analyze and talk about your problem, your issue, your cancer, your husband who abused you, it's like it's a groove of a record that just got dug deeper into your brain.
Yeah.
And
well, we're doing our own conference next year. And maybe we can get you to be a part of it and bring your technology to Colorado.
And my son got his thing is finance, and he got a position. He was in Denver for 3 years. He got a position back there. Loves skiing, so of course he's ecstatic. So I'd love to do that. That would be great. And yeah, we would bring a couple of miracles, and that would uplift and help whatever the messaging of the conference is.
Oh, great.
What is the messaging? Yeah. So this is where it's so useful, is that it's a support modality to whatever we're trying to accomplish at a conference. What's it going to be about? Have you chosen?
Well, we've been bouncing some stuff around. One of the things that I'm super passionate about is empowering through the masculine and the feminine energies, not just one or the other.
Nice.
And so
Balance.
just kind of really bringing that empowerment from both polarities to basically bring it into 0 point. So it's kind of cool. that, that kind of feeds in really interesting.
Yeah, you have balanced energy like that, actually. That's very, very cool. So there's a lot of talk about the divine feminine, but actually it's true. The balance has to be there, and the interconnection. So yeah, I'd love to participate, and we have a lot of people in Colorado with the technology. By the way, it is where California and Colorado and Florida is where it kind of took off first.
Interesting.
Where, of course, Colorado and Boulder, of course.
Yeah, not surprising, Boulder.
There's probably like more instruments in Boulder and Denver than any Loveland. And and we do have a member of our community who has a beautiful retreat center above Boulder, by the way, Real Graumick.
Oh.
I think he can host about 70 people, so I'm glad to introduce you. And he has the miracle.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I've never been there physically, but I've seen pictures, and he's really a sweetheart. So yeah, it's somewhere right above Boulder. So we do have quite a few technologies there.
Oh, awesome. Well, we'll definitely have to talk post-show and organize the details.
Absolutely. And the great thing about the miracle is that it can be playing 24/7 during the event, doing its work. You don't even have to know it's there, but it's there. And it's that is one of the things about it that's very unique. It's not something that requires extensive explanation for it to do its work.
I love that.
Yeah, it's working silently, and it doesn't have to be audible. Like at Jessica's, I don't think they were playing it audibly.
No.
Yeah, I didn't know that was happening.
So we had like 5 technologies there. Did you know that? We had 4 miracles, 1 Tesla. Yeah, they were all running.
It's a good human hack.
It's a human. Do you like that word hack, or do you like leap? Quantum leap?
I like the hack because it really kind of, it makes sense, like it's just, you're trying to get into something and it's like, So, well, thank you so much, Helena, for coming on the show and for being so generous with the products that you guys offer to our audience. We'll leave all that information in the show notes. And again, your website is quantumsoundtherapy.com.
Absolutely. And Cloud Sound Therapy is the virtual voice analysis.
Perfect. So people can do that either through the app or on their desktop.
Absolutely. iPhone app or on their desktop.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Helena, and to our audience, thanks for joining us again this week. We definitely recommend you, if you're interested in this at all, it's something you will definitely want to add to your repertoire, your toolbox for conscious involvement, healing. It's a really cool tool. And like Helena said, there's no thinking involved here. It's very simple. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We will be back again with you next week.
Thank you all for joining our show. We appreciate you tuning in and supporting us. If any of you have any questions you would like answered on the show or any guests that you would like to hear on our show, please email that information to us at info@enlightenup.us or send us a voice message using the Anchor app. There's a super cool feature on there that allows you to send us a message or ask us a question with a touch of a button right from the app. And please continue to support us by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you haven't checked out Nicole's channel on YouTube yet, head on over there for some more insight from her, or you can visit her website, inflexibleme.com, where you can book a personal coaching session or a tarot reading, watch some of her most informative videos, or you can sign up for her newsletter. And if you're interested in some light language healing, head to my YouTube channel, Lisa Loves Love, or send me an email to lisa@lisaloveslove.com to inquire about your own personal reading. Thank you again for joining us and supporting us, and we'll be back with you all next week.